On today's show, the Houston Rockets dominate Game 6 against the Golden State Warriors to force a Game 7 back home at Toyota Center. Let's go!
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The two greatest words in the English language, Game 7. What is up? And welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Would sincerely appreciate all of that support. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. The Houston Rockets, against all odds, forcing a Game 7 after going down 3-1 in this series against the Warriors. They take the 115-107 win in Game 6. That final score does not do it justice because the Rockets flat out dominated that fourth quarter before Steve Kerr waved the white flag, put in his bench, and they were able to run up the score a little bit, make it a bit of a closer game than it actually was. This Rockets team put BTA on the Warriors in Game 6, dominated them on their home court to force a Game 7. Just unbelievable resolve, resiliency from this group to be able to overcome the odds and make it to a Game 7. Fred VanVleet was on fire. He's earned every cent of that $130 million contract. Alperen Sengun doing a little bit of everything, but most importantly, his defense has been on another level in this series and in this game. And the big guy himself, Steven Adams.
Hell yeah, brother.
Steve-O. Quite literally the biggest difference maker, the X factor in this series for the Rockets and in this game in particular. So many different things to unpack and get into. We're going to talk about the defensive stretch, the defensive masterclass that the Rockets put on, the clinic in the fourth quarter to take control of this game after leading by just 2 going into the final frame. We're going to get into all the different elements from this one, but I want to start with the key for the Rockets in this series and in this game, and that's Steven Adams. He is the series MVP. He has been the most important piece on the floor for the Rockets. They have flat out won the minutes where Steven has been on the floor. He was plus 15 in this game, and the box score doesn't even do it justice. That's the crazy part. You look at his box score, 17 points, perfect shooting from the floor, 4 of 4, 5 rebounds, 1 steal, 3 blocks, went 9 of 16 at the free throw line as the Warriors were playing Hacka Adams in this one. The box score does not do him justice. He also wasn't really happy about the fact that he only had 3 offensive rebounds.
Go ahead. 3 offensive rebounds, dude. That sucks.
I have a whole dedicated page now of sound bites from one post-game press conference with Steven Adams. It's unbelievable. What else do I have on here?
I just follow the game plan, bro.
Look, credit to Steven Adams for his impact because you really have to watch to see what he's doing out there. But offensively, he is such a threat on the offensive glass that it opens things up for other players. The Warriors often have to put 2 guys on him to prevent him from getting those offensive rebounds, where they have to foul him, which then opens things up for Alperen Sengun. Alp talked about it post-game that Steven does the hard work, and then he gets the easy job of just cleaning things up sometimes. Defensively, Adams has been everything when he's out there. The Rockets run their zone defense when he's out there, and it takes a great communicator to be the anchor of that zone defense, which Steven Adams is. And when asked about the zone defense, he said, it's a weird zone. It's kind of bizarre, honestly, but it works. And even Fred VanVleet, when asked about the Rockets zone defense, said that, it's unorthodox, and that they have like the bigs on the back line and then they morph around and they're flying around. And he said half the time we don't even know what the hell we're doing out there. So it's probably pretty hard to game plan against. And that seems very true because the Warriors seem to have no answer for that zone defense when the Rockets deploy it. And in this game, Ime Udoka realized that Adams was the key X factor to this series, that the Warriors have had zero answer for him when he's been on the floor. And so he elected to roll with Steven Adams for 20 of the available 24 minutes in the second half. 31 minutes played for Steven Adams, by far the most he's played in an individual game this season, the most he's played since like 2023, the last time that he was actually healthy before rehabbing his knee injury. That's how important he was to the fabric of this game and to the fabric of this team. And even on the defensive side, the rim protection, the rebounding, the blocked shots, like I don't remember Adams, even the last time that he was healthy, being this effective as a rim protector. And he's really just picking and choosing his spots so carefully in these games. He's been swallowing up shots left and right around the rim from the Warriors whenever they do find a small crack or a seam in that zone defense. But to me, the most important factor of this game was actually involving head coach Ime Udoka, because we saw in game 4, the Warriors were attempting to deploy the Haka-Adams strategy with Steve-O on the floor. And after a couple fouls, Ime Udoka pulled Steven Adams out of the game once the Rockets were in the bonus. And then the Rockets struggled to put points up on the board after that point, and they struggled on both ends of the floor once Steven Adams went out. In this game, as soon as Steve Kerr elected to go with Haka-Adams, Ime Udoka did not falter, and he stuck with Adams on the floor. Adams went to the free throw line 16 times in this game. He hit 9 of them. That's all you need. As long as you can knock down at least one of the 2 free throws each trip down during that Haka-Adams strategy, the Hack-a-Shack, whatever, that's more than 1 point per possession, or at least 1 point per possession if you're hitting half of them, which by Rockets offensive playoff standards, like that's a win if you're the Rockets. Yeah, it might take other guys a little bit out of rhythm, but there's so many benefits to it, right? It gives you a chance to set your defense each and every time. It's guaranteed points on the board. It slows down the pace of the game. It gives everybody a chance to kind of catch their breath a little bit. And on top of that, there were not one, but 2 different occasions where Alperen Sengun was able to sneak away with an offensive rebound off of a Steven Adams miss on the second free throw. The first time, you just got to put back right at the rim. The second time, Alp got the rebound and got fouled immediately and went back to the free throw line. So the Warriors, a bad rebounding team, can't even execute the Haka-Adams strategy because they can't even secure the defensive board on the missed free throws. But credit to Ime Udoka for sticking with Steven Adams through the Haka-Adams strategy. Credit to Steve-O for rising to the occasion, for knocking down the free throws, for staying on the floor, and for just being so impactful on both ends. He is the series MVP. I need to see a Steven Adams statue going up down at Toyota Center immediately. If the Rockets are able to pull off the win in Game 7 and advance and finally beat the Warriors in a playoff series, I want to see a Steven Adams statue right next to Hakeem Olajuwon on Polk Street. I want to see his jersey in the up in the rafters. It belongs up there. No, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but seriously, Steven Adams has been the difference maker in this series, but he wasn't the only one getting the job done in Game 7. There was a big 3 really working their asses off to pull this one out. Fred VanVleet was on fire, flat out outplaying Steph Curry. Alperen Sengun doing a little bit of everything, including playing some of the best defense of his career. We got to talk about the stretch of the game that really sealed this one for the Rockets. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment costs, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized, unfortunately, just how much I was spending on food, fast food, dining out at restaurants, all that. Now I budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. I'm gonna level with you guys. This is the most stressed out that I was watching a game, that I have been watching a game, probably since all the way back in Game 7 between these two teams, honestly. And given the flow of the game, look, the Rockets were in control for a majority of this game, but it almost didn't feel like it. It felt like at every moment you were worried that here it comes. Warriors are going to take over. Steph Curry's going to get hot. They're going to suddenly start knocking down all their shots, or the Rockets are going to fall apart offensively and not be able to get anything going. But Rockets led 25-21 after the first quarter. The Rockets led for a majority of this game. The Warriors only wound up, they led for a little bit at various points in the first quarter. There were 10 lead changes, and they all happened in that first quarter. After the first quarter, the Rockets led the rest of the way. The Warriors managed to tie it up at one point late in the first half, and then the Rockets had a response to get back out in front by 5 just before halftime. But it didn't feel like it. The lead never felt like it was enough in this game. And then that third quarter happened. Steph Curry scored 10. Jimmy Butler scored 10. Podziemski had 8 points in that quarter. And the Warriors that was the first quarter that the Warriors won 36-33. And that momentum going into the fourth quarter, it kind of felt like, okay, here it is. What's happening? How are the Rockets going to respond? And literally the first play of the fourth quarter was a Fred VanVleet 4-point play. 6 seconds in, fires up a 3 and gets fouled to boot, knocks down the free throw. Rockets lead goes from just 2 all the way up to 6. And then and that play felt like it really kind of took some of the wind out of the Warriors' sails. Kind of that's a pretty demoralizing way to start the fourth quarter in such a tightly contested game. And then from that point, the Rockets defense, we've talked about this Rockets defense. We've said it was legit all season long, and their defense helped carry them to this win. They pitched an absolute shutout at the top of the fourth quarter. Over the first 7-8 minutes of the fourth quarter, Warriors were 1 of 15 shooting from the floor. The Rockets held them to just 5 points for about 8 minutes of run in the fourth quarter. That is unbelievable defensive intensity to be able to limit the Warriors to just 5 points. Only 1 made field goal and 3 free throws from Jimmy Butler. That's all the Warriors got in that fourth quarter stretch. Meanwhile, the Rockets just kept chipping away offensively, kept doing what they needed to do, generating shots. The Steven Adams Hacka Adams strategy Steve Kerr was deploying. And so the Rockets were getting some guaranteed points out of that as well on the floor. But their defense across the board in that fourth quarter, and even especially on Steph Curry in that fourth quarter, held him to just 3 points and 1 turnover on 1 of 7 shooting in the final frame. Warriors just didn't have it. They didn't have enough. The Warriors literally could not beat the Rockets defense. It was suffocating. They were forcing them into tough shots. The rotations were clean. They were flying around, closing out, contesting, doing everything they could to win this game. And that defensive stand at the top of the fourth quarter gave the Rockets enough airspace. They were able to build up the lead enough before the Warriors eventually gave up on it. Again, they had a 17-point lead. 17-point lead at one point, 106-89, before Alperen Sengun was whistled for a flagrant foul on Jimmy Butler, which, was it a flagrant? Was it not? Who cares? And Steve Kerr pulled the starters not long after that. He pulled the starters with about 2.5 minutes left in the game, and the score was 112-97 when Steve Kerr pulled the starters out. The Warriors, before waving the white flag, were held to just 13 points in the fourth quarter. Rockets defense won them this game. And being able to rely on that defense is what makes this team so incredibly special. And I want to give a lot of credit here to talked about Adams and his impact defensively. And it takes an entire team effort for the Rockets defense to be the way that it was. But the 5-man lineup that was out there to close out the game, Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Amin Thompson, Alperen Sengun, Steven Adams. Those guys flat out took care of business in the fourth quarter. Just an unbelievable display of intensity, of game plan discipline, all of the above. And for Alperen Sengun, look, he had himself another incredible stat stuffing game. 21 points, 8 of 20 shooting. He was struggling at halftime, just 4 of 11 shooting there, went 4 of 9 in the second half. So not the most efficient evening for Al P, but in a game where every bucket is monumental, sometimes you just got to put something in the hoop. And he had a number of really tough baskets in this game to go 21 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, and went 5 of 7 at the free throw line. But his most important contributions were on the defensive end, it felt like. Alp was some of the best defense of his career. The rotations, the closeouts, his ability to be on an island against Steph Curry at times in this game cannot be overstated how impressive it has been to see Alperen Sengun and the defensive evolution that he's gone through to where he was out there as an absolute plus defensively. And Jalen Green, too. Jalen Green deserves all the credit in the world for his defensive performance in this game. He wasn't great offensively. He struggled, and there were various points where the Rockets were trying to run some stuff through Jalen Green, and I caught myself, watching this game thinking, stop, you're wasting possessions. He doesn't have it tonight, and it kind of eye test matched that, right? Like, he struggled offensively against the Warriors here in Game 6, just 12 points on 3 of 11 shooting, but he held up his end of the bargain defensively. And in a game where Ime Udoka couldn't trust Dillon Brooks, Dillon was not himself this game. Too many bad fouls. Didn't have it offensively either in this one. And down on his bench. Yeah, he maybe could have gone with Tari, Eason, or Jabari Smith Jr., but Ime Udoka elected to roll with Jalen Green, in part because the Warriors were still treating Jalen Green as a lethal threat on the floor, dedicating a lot of attention to stopping him on the court. And yet it was the defensive side of the ball that won this for the Rockets. And to see Jalen Green, to see Alperen Sengun, to see those guys rise to the occasion defensively and be able to lock in with that closing lineup of Fred VanVleet, Amin Thompson, and Steven Adams, just incredible to see their growth and what they've become and what they're able to do in a high-stakes, backs-to-the-wall playoff game. Literally do or die, win or go home for all the marbles kind of game. And both of them were able to lock in defensively there in that fourth quarter and help pull out this win. Coming up, I want to talk about Fred VanVleet being on fire, his contributions to this game, as well as final thoughts from this one. We're going to get there in just one moment. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, one of my keys coming into this game, and we talked about it, was the offensive rebounding and the second chance points battle that the Rockets actually managed to lose the last 2 times that these teams played in the Bay Area at Chase Center. The Warriors beat the Rockets in second chance points in both games 3 and 4. In this game, Rockets won the second chance points battle 19-12. They also won the points in the paint battle 42-32. Now, where they did get hurt, and this was flat out unacceptable, and it kind of felt like this might be one of the root causes of the Rockets potentially losing this game at various points when it felt like things were kind of tilting back into the Warriors' favor. Warriors actually beat the Rockets on the fast break 28-11, which is kind of absurd given that the Warriors are the older, slower, more veteran-laden team, and yet they were the ones getting out and running in transition quite a bit more than the Rockets were. But where the Rockets made up the difference, and it's been the story all series long, the free throw shooting. Rockets went to the line 46 times. Now, granted, 16 of those were Steven Adams and the whole Hack-a-Adams gambit, but 46 trips to the free throw line, they hit 33 of them, 71.7%. They were a plus 15 at the free throw line, plus 15. And in a game where the deciding outcome of the game before the Warriors pulled their starters, right, and it was a 15-point deficit, that's the game right there. Rockets hit their free throws. Ime Udoka trusted Steven Adams. He delivered. And, man, just the margins in this game, absurd. But the Rockets took care of business. They handled what they were supposed to handle. They controlled what they could control. And speaking of control, man, Fred VanVleet was just about flawless in this game. It feels like a travesty that I'm not talking about Fred until the third segment of the show. I mean, I know I mentioned him very early on, but 29 points, 7 of 13 shooting. Look at that. 7-1-3. Fred VanVleet, repping H-Town. 6 of 9 from downtown. Nice. 9 of 9. A perfect 9 of 9 from the free throw line for Steady Freddy. 8 rebounds, 8 assists, only a couple turnovers. I didn't know if Fred had another game like this in him, but he has absolutely, after a rough first few games of this series, he has totally turned things around and risen to the occasion in games 4, 5, and 6. He's legitimately outplaying Steph Curry for the last 3 games of this series. In a series featuring the greatest shooter of all time and one of the greatest players to have ever touched a basketball, Fred VanVleet has been better than him on the basketball floor in the last 3 games. He has hit 17 threes over the last 3 games, shooting something like his TS over the last 3 games is something like 83%. Just unbelievable production from Fred VanVleet. And you worry, and each game you're like, okay, is next game going to be the game where he comes back down to earth and regresses to the mean a little bit? But look, after an entire season where Fred's shot was a little off, where his numbers weren't quite where they needed to be, he picked a hell of a time to get his act together and be able to deliver in these high leverage, in unbelievably crucial moments in the playoffs. That nickname, Steady Freddy, 100% true. He is the steadying force for this Rockets team. He's delivered offensively for this Rockets team when Jalen Green hasn't been able to step up to the plate as the leading scorer for this squad. And big part of that is, the way the Warriors defensive game plan and all that stuff. But even in this one, look, the Warriors made the adjustment in this game. They inserted Buddy Hield into the starting lineup over Brandon Pajimski because they wanted to take Fred VanVleet out of the game. And it didn't matter. They had GP2 all over Fred VanVleet in this game, and it did not matter. Fred still got it going. And I think maybe the play of the game, the moment where I said to myself, holy crap, I think the Rockets are winning this, was when Jimmy Butler got the defensive rebound off of it was Alp drove to the basket and missed his shot. Ball kind of like, ping-ponged out of the paint, and Jimmy Butler had to go diving for it out of bounds, jumped and threw the ball back in bounds. Saving the ball under your basket is always, it's risky, right? He saves the ball back in bounds. Alperen Sengun receives steals the ball, takes the pass, looks around, finds Fred VanVleet multiple steps behind the 3-point line, mind you, and Fred raises up with zero hesitation and knocks down the three-pointer, giving the Rockets the 101-89 lead with about 6.5 minutes left to play in the game. And that was still, look, 12-point lead, 6 minutes to go. That's nothing by NBA standards. But that was the moment where I thought to myself, okay, 12-point lead, 6 minutes. The defense has been suffocating. And it prompted a Warriors timeout on top of all that to make matters even worse for Golden State. But that was the moment where I really let myself start to believe, I think the Rockets are going to be able to pull this one out. Just an unbelievable set of performances across the board. Fred, Alp, Steve-O were all fantastic. Rockets got a great all-around game from Amin Thompson, 14 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, some stellar defense on Steph Curry yet again. Jalen Green, again, struggling offensively, but really locked in defensively there in the fourth quarter. He also had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, a block mixed in there. And then off the bench, the Aries, Jabari and Tari. Jabari hit a couple huge three-pointers there in the third quarter. 8 points, 3 of 4 shooting, had a few rebounds. And then Tari Eason, 8 points, couple rebounds, had an assist, 4 steals for Tari Eason. Tari was there, man. The Rockets, they would pressure and they'd get the Warriors playing a little loose or playing, getting them sped up a little bit with the ball. And then it felt like every moment where the Warriors started to bobble a pass or, the handle got a little loose or the pressure was too much, Tari Eason was right there to turn it into a fast break opportunity for the Rockets or to turn it into at least a turnover, if not capitalizing fully on the fast break. But Tari had one kind of boneheaded foul in this game on Steph from behind the three-point line. But outside of that, a strong game from Tari Eason as well. Again, Dillon Brooks in foul trouble in this one and really kind of was in his own head in this one, unfortunately. So Ime letting him sit on the bench, only 19 minutes played for DB. But just an amazing all-around team effort for the Rockets to be able to gut this one out and force a Game 7. And you look at the Warriors, man, they just didn't. What do we talk about before this series started, right? Warriors just didn't have enough outside of Steph and Jimmy. Steph had 29 points, but it took him 23 shots to get there, just 6 of 16 from downtown, well below his usual efficiency standards. And Jimmy Butler, 27 points, 7 of 17 shooting, went to the free throw line 14 times, hit 12 of them. But outside of those two guys, you got 13 points from Moody off the bench, 10 points from Pajimski. The rest of the Warriors starters, Buddy Hield, 0 points, 0 of 4. Gary Payton II, 5 points, 2 of 5 shooting. Draymond Green, 8 points, 3 of 8 shooting. They just didn't have enough offense. Rockets defense deserves a ton of credit for making the Warriors uncomfortable, for forcing other guys to beat them, and for even limiting and making it really difficult in the times where Steph and Jimmy did try to take over, did try to score the ball. They didn't have it down the stretch. They looked tired. They looked like a team that should have tried to take care of business in Game 5, but instead punted on Game 5, opted for rest to be ready for Game 6. And spoiler alert, they were not ready for Game 6. Buddy Hield, after Game 5 at Toyota Center, said, "We won't be back." Well, guess where they're going to be Sunday night, playing against the Rockets in Game 7 at Toyota Center. I need everybody who's going to that game to show up, show out, be loud, wear red. For the love of God, if you go to the game, put the damn shirt on. I don't know why it's become this thing where people are too cool to put the shirt on. We want to drown them in a sea of red. Remember Steve Kerr's quote from the in-season tournament where the Rockets won against the Warriors? And before the game, he was like, I felt like I was descending into the depths of hell with the Rockets red in-season tournament court. Do that again. But wear the red shirts in the crowd. Please, I am begging you, Rockets fans. Please. I'm so incredibly proud of this Rockets team. Like, they could have put up a good fight in Game 6 and lost, and I still would have been incredibly proud of them. It's still a monumentally successful season, given where they were, expectations, all of that. And yet they far surpass any and all expectations. And now they have a chance to move on to the next round and deal with Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. But that's a conversation for another day. I want your thoughts. I want your reactions, everything about this Game 6 win. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Remember, the best way to help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform you're choosing, as well as liking, commenting, and subscribing on YouTube. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.